The cell was cold, and the air was heavy with dust and smoke. Chains clinked softly as the alien girl sat on the hard floor, her wrists tied with glowing iron cuffs. Her eyes, large and bright like twin moons, stared into the shadows of the prison chamber. She had been here for days, maybe weeks. She had lost count. The walls dripped with strange green liquid, and every sound of dripping water reminded her of time slowly dying. 2 alien guards entered, their skin like hard stone and their voices like growling beasts. They dragged her to her feet, pulling her across the floor as she struggled to stand. Her body was weak from hunger, her steps unsteady. The guards laughed in their deep, ugly voices. "The breeding chamber is ready," one said. The girl's heart pounded as she realized her nightmare was about to begin. The corridor was dark and endless, lit only by red lamps that blinked slowly like dying eyes. She was pushed through the hallway, her chains scraping the floor. Other prisoners whispered in the shadows, but no one dared to help. She could feel their hopelessness. Their silence was heavier than the chains on her arms. Every corner smelled of blood and oil. Every door carried the cries of those who had been taken before her. The girl closed her eyes for a moment, trying to remember her home, a place with bright rivers and skies full of stars. Her mother's voice telling her stories of freedom. Her father's promise that no harm would come to her. But that world felt like a dream now, a dream shattered by the hands of cruel invaders. The guards pushed her into a large chamber with dark machines and glass tanks filled with strange fluids. She could see broken bodies of others who had been tested, their faces pale and lifeless. The sound of machines echoed like drums of war. She tried to scream, but her voice was weak. Only a small whisper escaped her lips. The guards ignored her, laughing as they prepared the chamber. She knew there was no escape. Her body shook, her eyes filled with tears. The thought of being used, of losing herself forever, crushed her spirit. Her chains rattled as she pulled back, but the guards only tightened their grip. They raised their weapons, pressing them against her back, forcing her forward. Her heart begged for a miracle, for someone to hear her silent cry. Then it happened. A sound shook the ground. A loud crash echoed through the prison walls. Dust and sparks fell from the ceiling as the machines flickered. The guards turned their heads, their eyes wide with confusion. The girl froze, her heart beating faster than ever before. Another crash followed, this one closer. Like thunder breaking inside the walls, the chamber door shook violently. The guards pulled out their weapons. A shadow moved in the smoke. Heavy footsteps echoed like drums of war. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Was it another monster, another nightmare? Or was it something else, something different? The metal doors burst open with a roar. Light and fire spilled into the chamber. Through the smoke stepped a figure, tall and covered in armor. The alien guards hissed, raising their weapons. "A human," one growled. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with shock. A human here, in the heart of the enemy's prison. The human soldier stood firm, his armor scratched and burned from battle. A glowing weapon rested in his hand, unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. He raised it slowly, aiming at the guards with calm eyes. The guards laughed, their ugly voices shaking the chamber. "One human against us?" They mocked, but the soldier did not answer. His silence was louder than their laughter. The girl's chains rattled as she tried to step back, unsure if this was real. Why would a human come here? Why would he risk his life for her? The guards charged at him, their heavy feet shaking the floor. The human moved fast, faster than her eyes could follow. Bright flashes of energy filled the chamber as his weapon fired. The guards screamed, their stone-like bodies cracking and falling to the ground. The girl covered her face, the sound of battle filling her ears. When she looked again, the smoke cleared, the guards lay still, broken on the cold floor, and the human stood alone, his weapon glowing in silence. For the first time in many days, The girl felt something strange. Hope. Her chains were still heavy, her body still weak. But in front of her stood a human, someone who did not belong here, someone who might change everything. The human stepped closer, his face hidden behind his helmet. His voice was calm, strong. "You are safe now," he said. The girl's heart trembled. She could not understand. Why would a human, her people's enemy, save her? But deep inside, she felt that this was not the end. This was the beginning. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly as she tried to understand what had just happened. For so long, the prison had only given her pain, fear, and silence. Now, standing before her, was something she never expected. A human covered in black armor. Glowing faintly under the flickering red lights of the chamber, he lowered his weapon, smoke still rising from its barrel. The guards who once dragged her like broken glass now lay lifeless on the ground. The human's boots echoed against the floor as he walked closer, slow and steady. The girl trembled, unsure if this was a savior or just another kind of predator. Her people had been told for years that humans were no different from beasts. Cruel, selfish, always taking, always destroying. She wanted to step back, but the chains still held her tightly. The human stopped only a few steps away, through the shadow of his helmet. His voice came like calm thunder. "You are not alone." Any more. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her voice was too weak, her throat too dry. The human studied the glowing cuffs around her wrists, his hand rising toward them. The girl flinched, expecting pain. But instead, he pressed something on his armor. A small light flickered, and suddenly her cuffs clicked open. The chains fell with a heavy sound, like death itself breaking apart. She stared at her freed hands, disbelief flooding her eyes. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she could move without pain. Her weak body trembled as she rubbed her wrists. The skin raw and bruised. The human crouched down slightly, his tone gentle but firm. "Can you walk?" She wanted to answer, but her words stuck. Her body was weak, but her spirit whispered. "Move." She nodded slowly, though her legs shook as she tried to stand. The human placed a steady hand on her shoulder, guiding her carefully. For a moment, she felt warmth, something she thought had died in this place. Then, the silence of the chamber broke. A deep alarm blared across the prison, loud and sharp like metal screams. Red lights flashed violently, bathing the walls in warning. The ground shook as footsteps thundered in the distance. The girl's eyes widened. More guards were coming, and they would not come alone. The human looked toward the door, his helmet tilting slightly. He seemed calm, but his grip tightened. On his weapon, "Listen to me," he said, his voice cutting through the alarm. "If you want to live, stay close to me." The girl hesitated, fear clawing at her heart. Could she trust him? Was this another trick? But then she remembered. The chains, the laughter of the guards, the chamber of experiments. She took a step closer, her voice soft and trembling. I will follow." The human nodded once. No time wasted. He moved toward the broken door, where smoke still drifted from his earlier blast. She followed, her steps unsteady but filled with new energy. Behind them, shadows began to move. Voices growled in alien tongues. The sound of metal armor and claws scraping against the floor grew nearer. The corridor outside was darker than she remembered. Red warning lights lit the path in flashes, revealing pipes, broken wires, and doors that groaned like dying beasts. The human walked with controlled speed, his weapon raised, scanning every corner. She stumbled once, but he caught her arm before she fell. "Stay with me," he said again, calm but commanding. It felt less like an order and more like a promise. A roar echoed behind them, heavy footsteps shaking the corridor. The girl turned, and her heart froze. 3 more guards rushed out of the smoke, taller and stronger than the first ones. Their weapons glowed, sharp and deadly, One shouted, "Stop the human! Take the girl!" The human pushed her behind him in one smooth motion. He raised his weapon, and the corridor lit up with fire. The sound was deafening, like thunder trapped inside stone walls. The girl covered her ears, watching in shock as flashes tore through. The darkness. 2 guards fell, their bodies hitting the floor with sickening thuds. But the third one charged forward, swinging a heavy blade the human blocked with his armored arm. Sparks flying as metal clashed, the impact shook the corridor. The girl gasped, the alien growled, pressing forward, stronger with each strike. But the human fought back, his movements fast, precise, almost impossible. He shifted, sidestepped, and with a sharp strike from his glowing weapon, the alien collapsed. The silence after the fight was broken only by the distant alarms. The girl could barely breathe, her heart racing faster than ever. This human was not like the monsters she had been told about. He fought with fury, but also with control, and most strange of all, he was protecting her. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Why? Why are you helping me?" The human turned his helmet slightly toward her. For a moment, there was only silence, only the echo of alarms in the distance. Then his voice came low, steady, carrying weight. "Because no one deserves to be treated like this," his words struck her heart like light-piercing darkness. They moved again, deeper into the tunnels. Every corner carried danger. Every shadow whispered with unseen eyes. The girl's legs shook, but each time she faltered. The human was there to steady her. The alarms grew louder, signaling more hunters on their trail. Somewhere far, metal doors crashed open. The hunt had begun. The girl's fear grew. But so did something else, a fragile flame of hope. She had been nothing but prey. But now, with this stranger beside her, she felt something impossible, a chance of escape, the chance of survival. And as the tunnels stretched endlessly before them, she realized this human was not only her rescuer, he might be the only thing standing between her people and extinction. And in his silent steps, she felt the beginning of something greater than freedom, something that could change the fate of 2 worlds. The tunnels twisted like the veins of a dying beast. The girl stumbled after the human, her breath shallow, her heart beating too fast. Every step felt like it might be her last, yet she forced herself to keep moving. Behind them, alarms screamed like angry spirits, echoing through the metal walls. She knew the guards were coming, not just a few, but an army. The human stopped at a corner, his armored hand raised. She froze instantly, her body trembling. His helmet turned slightly, as if he could see through the walls. He was silent, but she felt the weight of his focus. Then, without warning, he pulled her into a side passage. A hidden door slid open with a low hiss, revealing a narrow service tunnel. The girl gasped as the door closed behind them, cutting off the red lights. Darkness swallowed them whole, broken only by the faint glow of his weapon. The human moved forward carefully, his steps measured. She followed, her bare feet scraping against the cold floor. The tunnel was smaller, forcing them close, his armored shoulder brushing hers as they moved. Finally, she gathered the courage to whisper, her voice weak, "Why are you here?" The human's steps did not falter, but his voice came calm, steady. "I came to end this place." His words echoed in her mind. To end this place, not to escape, not just to fight, but to destroy it. Her eyes widened. "You mean the breeding chambers?" He gave a short nod. "And every other chamber like it." The girl felt her throat tighten. She had dreamed of such a thing, but dreams had no power in this prison. Yet here was a human speaking of it as a mission, as if it was possible. A sudden boom shook the walls, dust falling from above. The girl flinched, clutching her arms. The human turned his head, his voice sharper now. "They are trying to seal the tunnels. We need to move faster." He grabbed her wrist, not with cruelty, but with urgency. His grip was strong, grounding her, guiding her, pulling her forward. When her legs wanted to collapse, the tunnel ended at a grated door. The human knelt, pulling out a small tool from his armor. Blue sparks lit the air as he cut through the metal silently. The girl watched, her heart racing, her mind spinning. He was prepared for this. Every move of his felt planned. Could it be that he had known she was here? That he had come not by chance, but for her? The door fell open with a clang, revealing a larger chamber beyond. Pipes lined the walls. Steam hissed from broken vents. And in the center, a platform glowed with strange symbols. It looked like an elevator, though unlike any she had seen before. The human stepped onto it, pulling her with him. He pressed his gauntlet against the controls. The platform groaned and began to descend. As they moved down, the girl finally found her voice. Her words spilled out in a rush. "My people. They were taken from our villages," the guard said. "None of us ever return." Her chest shook as she tried to speak. The human's silence stretched long, but when he answered, his voice carried steel. "They won't take anyone else if I can stop them." The girl blinked at him, tears threatening to fall. She had been told humans were merciless, yet this one spoke with fire, for people not his own. Her heart whispered a question she dared not speak. Why would a human risk everything for her? For them? The platform stopped with a heavy clang. The chamber they entered was wider, darker. The stench of blood and chemicals hit her like a wave. The walls were lined with glass tanks, each one glowing faintly. Inside floated shapes, bodies, some alien, some unrecognizable. Her stomach twisted, bile rising in her throat. This was not only a prison, it was a factory of horror. The human's helmet tilted as he studied the room. His voice was low. "This is one of their labs." The girl pressed against him unconsciously, her small frame trembling beside his armored body. They used my people here," she whispered. She could almost see her friends, her kin, trapped inside those tanks. The human raised his weapon, firing at the machines. Explosions lit the chamber as glass shattered and sparks flew. The girl flinched at the sound. But then she saw it, the bodies inside the tanks slipping free, no longer trapped like trophies. But the destruction woke the nest. Doors all around the chamber opened, and the sound of claws and armored feet filled the air. Dozens of guards poured in, their glowing eyes burning with rage. The girl's chest tightened, panic flooding her veins. This was too many. Not even this human could fight them all. The human turned, his voice sharp, commanding, "Run!" Her feet froze, her mind screamed, but his hand shoved her toward another door at the far end. She stumbled forward, her legs moving on instinct. Behind her, the chamber roared with battle. The sound of his weapon thundered again and again. Screams of aliens echoed, metal clashed, glass shattered. She turned once, just for a heartbeat. The human stood like a wall of fire, his weapon blazing, his body unmoving despite the storm around him. Something inside her broke and rebuilt in that instant. He was not fighting only to escape. He was fighting for her. Her weakness, her fear, her chains. None of it mattered to him. To him, she was worth protecting. Tears blurred her eyes as she pushed through the smaller door. The tunnel beyond was narrow and shaking from the explosions. Behind, she pressed herself against the wall. Gasping for air, her heart screamed to run, but her soul screamed to wait. Was he still alive? Could he survive that storm? Then a shadow filled the tunnel, and for a terrible second, she thought it was a guard, but it was him. Battered, armor scratched, a trail of smoke rising from his chest plate, yet his weapon still glowed, his breath steady, his presence unbroken. Her knees gave out in relief. "You? You came," she whispered, her voice shaking. He only gave a short nod, his words few but strong. "We are not done yet." The ground shook violently, a distant explosion tearing through the prison's heart. The human steadied her again, pulling. her to her feet. "They will chase us harder now," he said, his tone both warning and promise. "Then where do we go?" she asked, fear still clinging to her. His reply came like thunder, simple but powerful. "To freedom." The tunnels trembled as if the prison itself was alive. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sparks burst from broken wires, and the sound of alarms howled like wounded beasts. The girl's legs shook as she ran behind the human, her breath ragged, her chest burning. Every step felt heavier, yet her fear pushed her forward. Behind them, the roars of alien hunters grew louder, a storm of footsteps crashing closer and closer. The human's pace never faltered, his armor shining faintly in the red flashes of the alarm lights. He moved like a shadow of war, fast but controlled. Each turn, each step seemed already known to him, as if he had studied this labyrinth before entering it. The girl could barely keep up, but every time she stumbled, his hand caught her, pulling her forward without hesitation. It was as if his strength alone carried both of them. The tunnels widened suddenly into a large chamber. Pipes lined the walls, steam hissed from vents, and the floor was slick with oil. The human stopped at the center, raising his weapon. The girl froze at his side, clutching her chest. She wanted to ask why they had stopped, but the answer came before her lips could form the words. From the shadows above, creatures dropped like falling blades. Not guards this time, but hunters, leaner, faster, their claws curved like hooks. Their glowing eyes locked onto the human and the girl with hunger. The girl gasped as the first hunter leapt forward, its jaws wide, but the human fired, the weapon's blast lighting the chamber like lightning. The hunter crashed to the floor, its body smoking. Two more lunged, their claws striking sparks against his armor. The girl screamed, pressing herself against the wall. The human spun, striking one with the butt of his weapon before blasting the other into the steam. The battle was fast, savage, the chamber echoing with roars and fire. But the hunters kept coming, climbing from the walls, crawling from the pipes, their numbers endless, their speed terrifying. The girl's knees gave out, fear drowning her. Her mind screamed that this was the end, that no one could fight so many. But then she looked at him, the human, even surrounded, even outnumbered. His movements never slowed. He fought like a storm contained in one body, each strike, each shot, cutting down another beast. Every time a claw came too close, his armor turned it aside. Every time a hunter leapt for her, his weapon found it first. Still, she knew he could not hold them forever. Her heart raced as she searched the chamber desperately. There, across the floor, hidden in the smoke, was another door, a narrow passage, small but open. Her voice broke as she shouted, "There! A way out!" The human turned, saw it, and with one final blast cleared the path. "Go!" he commanded, his voice sharp, urgent. She ran, her weak legs carrying her faster than she thought possible. The door loomed closer, but just as she reached it, a hunter dropped from above, blocking her path, its claws stretched wide, its teeth dripping with venom. Her scream tore from her throat. But before the claws could touch her, the human slammed into the creature, driving his blade deep into its chest. The monster fell, and the human grabbed her arm, pulling her through the door. The tunnel beyond was narrow and steep. They stumbled through it, their breaths ragged. The ground shook as the hunters slammed into the sealed door behind them, claws scraping metal. The girl's heart pounded with terror. Knowing the door would not hold forever, the human pushed her forward, his voice firm. "Keep moving." The tunnel bent downward, deeper into the prison's belly. The air grew hotter, thick with smoke and the stench of burning metal. The girl coughed, her throat raw, but she refused to stop. She could hear the hunters behind them, breaking through, their roars echoing like demons unleashed. Her legs begged her to collapse, but the thought of their claws dragging her back kept her running. At last, The tunnel spilled into another vast chamber. This one was different. Wider, brighter, filled with strange machines humming with energy. In the center, a bridge stretched. Over a pit of fire, the humans stopped at the edge, scanning quickly. "This way," he said. Pointing across the bridge, they stepped onto it, the heat rising like waves from below. Each plank groaned under their weight, each step echoed into. The flames, halfway across, the hunters burst from the tunnel behind them. Dozens of them, their roars shaking the chamber. The girl's breath caught in her throat. "They're coming," she whispered. The human raised his weapon, firing blast after blast. Hunters fell screaming into the fire below, but more kept. Coming, crawling over each other like a living tide, the girl clutched the railing, her body trembling. "We'll never make it," she cried. But the human's voice was iron steady. "We will." He pressed a button on his armor, and the bridge shook. Explosives hidden within the structure beeped. Her eyes widened in shock. "You planted? Run!" He shouted, pulling her forward. They reached the far end as the hunters swarmed onto the bridge. The human tapped his gauntlet, and the world exploded. The bridge shattered. Fire erupted. Hunters screamed as they fell into the pit. The chamber shook violently, the walls cracking, pipes bursting. The girl covered her ears, her body trembling. When the smoke cleared, the bridge was gone, and so were the hunters. She stared at him in shock, her chest heaving. "You planned this," she whispered, her voice shaking. He nodded, his helmet hiding his eyes. "I knew we'd need a way to slow them down." She could not speak, could only stare. How could one man think, fight, and survive like this? He was not just a soldier. He was something more, something unstoppable. The ground shook again, stronger this time. The human steadied her, his voice sharp. "The whole facility is unstable now. We don't have much time." They moved through another corridor, smoke filling every corner. The girl's body felt heavy, but her heart burned with something new. Not just fear, but belief. Belief that maybe, just maybe, they could escape. But as they turned the final corner, her hope faltered. At the far end of the corridor stood a massive figure, taller than the rest, armored in black stone, its eyes glowing like molten fire. The alien commander. The girl froze, terror freezing her veins. The commander's voice rumbled like thunder. "The human will die here, and the girl will serve her purpose." The human stepped forward, weapon raised, his voice steady, unshaken. "Not today." The corridor shook as the alien commander stepped forward, armor like black stone and eyes like fire. The girl could not move. Fear held her like iron. The human shifted his weight, weapon raised, breath calm. For a heartbeat, the world was only heat, smoke, and the sound of alarms crying like lost birds. The commander lifted a heavy blade that hummed with a cruel light. His voice rolled down the passage. "The human will fall. The girl will be taken. The work will continue." The human answered with one word, "Not today." Then he moved. Fast as a spark in dry grass, the blade came down and met the human's armored forearm. Sparks flew like angry stars. The human's weapon roared. Light punched the commander's chest. The giant slid one step back, then smiled. A slow, cold thing. Two more guards charged from the shadows, claws out, jaws wide. The human kicked one hard and fired at the other. The girl felt the shock of air push past her face, hot and sharp. Commander advanced again, the floor cracking under his weight. A human switched stance, firing short bursts, always moving, always between the girl and death. He tossed a small disc to the floor, and the corridor filled with white smoke. The girl coughed, blind for a moment, the world becoming a loud echo. A hand took hers, firm and sure, and pulled her sideways through a maintenance hatch she had not seen. The panel slid shut, the smoke and the roars muffled to a dull thunder. They dropped into a narrow shaft, sliding down rough metal into darkness. They landed hard on a mesh walkway that trembled under their weight. The human steadied her with one arm, the other checking his weapon with quick, practiced motions. The girl looked up through the grate. Shadows moved like waves behind the hatch. He had not beaten the commander. He had delayed him, and now that he had... Hunt would grow sharper. The walkway led into an old service vault. The air was thick with oil and warm dust. Broken panels lay on the floor like fallen scales. A single emergency lamp flickered on the wall, weak but kind. The human guided her into the corner and knelt. He pressed 2 fingers to the inside of his helmet, as if speaking to a ghost, then lowered his hand. "We have little time," he said. Voice quiet yet steady. "They will track heat, sound, and metal." He touched a slot on his chest plate and pulled out a small case. It was flat, black, and marked with a symbol she did not know. A white line folded into a circle. He opened it. Inside lay a shard of silver and glass, no bigger than a finger. Its surface pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, patient, alive. "What is that?" the girl asked, her voice small. The human looked at the shard for a long breath, then at her. "This is a seed," he said. "A key, a cure, a fire. It was made to break places like this. It will wake the core, and the core will fall quiet forever." She stared at the shard, a little afraid, a little drawn to it. "Why tell me this now?" she asked. "Because I cannot use it alone," he said, "and because you deserve the truth before you choose." The girl felt the word choose like a warm weight in her hands. No one had given her that word in a long time. She sat on the cold floor, knees pulled. Close her eyes found his armor, scratched and dark, and the faint rise and fall of his breath. He was just one life, and yet he had split an army to reach her. He spoke again, slower, as if setting stones into place. "We learned of these breeding labs from broken signals and dying ships. We sent teams. Most did not come back. We found records. We found the pattern. Your people carry a tone, a soft light inside the blood. The core listens to that light. The seed must be sung awake by that light, or it is only stone." The girl touched the side of her neck where the old mark lay, a small pale crescent she had hidden since childhood. She had never known what it was, only that it warmed when she was afraid or brave. Her mother called it a star mark, a blessing and a warning. The girl looked up, eyes wide. "They took us because of the mark." "Yes," the human said, voice low. "They took you because the core needed your song to grow. They turned a gift into a chain." The girl felt her breath tremble, a soft storm in her chest. She remembered the glass tanks, the pale faces, the hum that lived in the walls. She remembered. A friend with the same mark, taken first, never seen again. Her fingers curled against the floor. "If my light can wake your seed," she said, "then my light can end this place." "Yes," the human said, and his voice held both hope and warning. "But there is more you must know." He turned the case so she could see the underside. A tiny timer blinked like a distant star. "Once the seed wakes, the core will try to fight." He said, "It will send power to crush us. It will call every hunter. It will scream into the sky. The seed will need a guardian for a while, someone to hold the line while the fire grows." Her eyes met his. Even if she could not see them through the helmet, she felt the truth behind the glass. "You mean you," she whispered. He did not answer. At once, then he nodded once, slow and final. "I was sent to plant the seed and stand with it. No matter the cost." The word cost hung in the air like a bell. The girl shook her head. "No, there must be another way. We both run after we start it. We both live." The human tilted his head as if listening to a memory. "I have seen this fire before." He said, "It eats everything for a time, even the brave. If no one holds the line, the core will close its hands and keep its heart. The fire will die, and they will rebuild. I will not give them that future." The girl pressed her palms to her eyes until little lights burst behind them. She did not want this truth, but she could not run from it. He had saved her, again and again, not for reward, not for glory. He had come to end a machine built on the bodies of her people. He had come to keep a promise she had never heard. She lowered her hands and looked at the shard. "If my song wakes it, I will sing. But we are leaving together," she said, a quiet storm in her voice. "We decide that after the core sleeps," the human said, a small half-breath that almost sounded like a smile. Another tremor rolled under them. Dust drifted in slow curtains from the ceiling. The lamp on the wall flickered and died. Far above, metal boomed, and a voice like a mountain roared orders in a language of knives. The commander was moving, hunting, closing the circle. The human stood, closed the case, and handed it to the girl. "Keep it close," he said. "If I fall, you carry it to the core without me." The girl clutched the case to her chest, then shook her head hard. "No, you do not fall." He did not argue. He only reached down and lifted a metal grate from the floor. Beneath it lay a narrow service pipe, barely wide enough for a human in armor. The air that rose from it was warmer, carrying a deep hum that made her teeth buzz. "The core," he said, and the word felt like a door opening in the dark. They climbed down, step by step, the pipe turning into a ladder, the ladder turning into rungs cut into stone. The hum grew louder. A slow drum, a living heart. The girl felt the mark on her neck warm and answer like a small bird waking at dawn. They reached a platform above a vast shaft. Below them, a lake of light burned behind crystal ribs. Cables like roots ran into it, feeding it, drinking from it, binding it. Across the gap stood a balcony lined with black consoles and bone-white screens. On the far wall, a door of heavy alloy waited, marked with the same white circle folded into a line. The human pointed. "That door, the core chamber. The seed goes to the throat of the machine." A thin bridge stretched from their platform to the balcony. No rails, no cover, only a narrow path over a fall into light and fire. The girl swallowed, her hands damp, her legs soft. "We cross now," the human said, "before they fill the platforms." They stepped onto the bridge, slow, careful, every footfall ringing like a bell. Heat rose around them in shimmering waves. The girl's eyes watered. The mark on her neck throbbed. The shard in the case pulsed to the same beat. Halfway across, the lights above them flared, harsh and cold. The voice of the commander rolled through the shaft. "Welcome, human, bringer of sparks and little singer. You walk into our heart, and you will feed it." The girl stopped. The bridge swayed under her feet. "Do not listen," the human said. "Keep moving." The console bank woke, screens filling with lines like teeth. Panels slid open along the walls, and small drones rose like black bees. Their wings were thin and sharp, their eyes red points of heat. The human stepped in front of the girl, firing in short, bright bursts. Drones fell, smoke curled, but more lifted from hidden nests. The bridge quivered as one drone darted low and cut a shallow line across the human's thigh. He staggered one step and caught himself. "Keep moving," he said again. Voice iron. The girl moved, breath short, hands tight on the case. The mark sang softly, like a note held in a patient throat. The drones paused at the sound, their wings stuttering for a heartbeat. The human noticed. His head turned a fraction. "That is you," he said. "Do not stop." They reached the balcony, metal hot under their boots. The human smashed a console with the butt of his weapon. The girl pressed close to the heavy door. It had no handle, only a plate the size of a hand. She looked at the human and then at the plate. "Try your mark," he said, and the words felt strange, but true. She lifted her hand and set 2 fingers to the plate. Heat rushed through her arm, and the door sighed as if it had waited for her all its life. It slid open, slow and wide. Light spilled out like a river. Inside lay the heart of the prison, a tower of crystal and metal, a spine of light reaching up into the dark. Around it, cages of wire held faint shapes like seeds not yet grown. A slow chant of power rolled through the floor and into the bones. The girl's breath hitched, her fear and her courage rising together. The human closed the door behind them and braced it with a fallen bar. He set his weapon beside the entrance and drew a blade that hummed softly. He pointed to a console at the base of the tower. There, he said, your song, the seed, and the end. She stepped forward, the case trembling in her hands. She opened it. The shard glowed brighter, answering her mark. Her fingers shook. But she placed the shard into the cradle on the console. It settled with a small click that sounded like a promise. The console woke, lines of light forming. Turning, waiting. The human stood between her and the door, blade ready, breath even. He looked taller than any fear, and yet human still. The girl set her palms on the console, closed her eyes, and let the note in her blood rise. It began, as a whisper inside her, the same soft hum that had lived under her skin since childhood. She gave it air, gave it shape, let it fill her chest and throat and mouth. No words, only tone, only the true sound of what she was. The shard brightened, the tower answered, slow at first, then eager. Power rolled out like a tide, gentle and then strong. The floor shivered, the walls moaned, the light inside the spine turned from cold blue to living white. The seed was waking, and the core felt it. And the core did not like it. The door shook, metal screamed. Something heavy struck it from the other side. The commander had found them. The human set his feet, blade up, no fear in his stance. Drones crawled through vents and snapped at the edges of the room. He cut them down with short, clean strokes, never letting one pass. Behind him the girl sang, a sound both small and endless. Tears ran down her cheeks and felt like heat in the cold air. She saw faces in the light, her mother, her friend with the star mark, the others who were lost. Her voice did not break. It grew, it spread. It filled the tower until the tower sang back. The seed flashed. The console showed a circle that began. To close, almost there, the human called, his voice steady even as the door bent in the center. The girl held the tone, breath burning, chest aching, eyes open and full of light. The floor rose under them with a deep heave, cables snapping like roots in a storm. The commander roared beyond the door, a sound of stone and rage. The girl lifted her chin and let the last of her fear go. This is for the taken, she said, and the tower answered with a sound like dawn. The circle on the console closed, the seed flared, and the core's light turned white as a star. The human looked back at her for a single heartbeat, a whole story in one silent glance. Then he faced the breaking door and raised his blade a little higher. Hold the line, he said, not to her, not to himself, but to the promise that brought him here. The bar on the door bent, the hinges screamed, light shook from the ceiling like rain. The girl set both hands to the console, her song steady as a river. The core woke to the truth it had stolen and now could not bear. And somewhere far above, the prison began to fall out of its own shadow. The door bulged, the first crack appeared. A thin black smile. The human drew one long breath and stepped into his place. The seed burned, the tower sang, the girl did not stop, and the commander came through the breaking door like night with teeth. The door cracked like bone under a hammer. Sparks burst from the hinges, each one a warning. The human stood with his blade ready, his breath calm, his armor scarred but unbroken. The girl kept her hands on the console, her voice steady, her song spilling into the core like a river of light. The shard pulsed brighter. The tower glowed like a living star. But the air grew hotter. The floor shook harder. The prison itself roaring against its own death. Then the door split wide, and the commander entered, a giant of black stone and fire, his blade long as a pillar, his eyes like molten suns. Behind him, hunters swarmed, claws scraping, jaws snapping, their bodies moving like shadows of war. The human did not step back, not even 1 inch. He raised his blade and met the first hunter head on. The strike cut through armor and bone. Sparks flying, the body fell, and another filled its place. The girl's voice wavered, but did not break. She could feel the core answering her. The light growing, the mark on her neck burned hot. The shard thrummed like a heartbeat in her chest. But with each note, the hunters grew more wild, more desperate. They wanted to silence her, to cut the song from her throat. The commander roared. Swinging his blade, the human met it. Steel against stone, the clash rattled the room. The impact drove cracks across the floor, dust raining from the ceiling. The human slid back, but did not fall. He struck back, quick and sharp, cutting deep into the commander's arm. Black blood hissed like acid, the smell burning the air, but the giant only laughed, a sound like rocks grinding. "You are fire, human, but fire burns out." The human said nothing, his silence louder than words. He fought, each strike fast, each step precise. Hunters lunged at his sides. He cut them down, never breaking guard. But they were endless, a tide. That would not stop. The girl watched through tears, her throat aching as she held her song. Every time she faltered, the human seemed to fight harder, as if his strength carried her voice. The core tower shook. The shard burned like a star. The console screamed with cymbals, the circle almost complete. The girl cried out, her voice breaking into sobs, but never stopping. She remembered her village, her mother's hands, her father's smile. She remembered her people chained, taken, silenced, and she poured all of it into her song, turning fear into fire. Her voice rose above the clash of blades and the roar of beasts, and the tower sang back, louder, brighter, unstoppable. The commander saw the circle close further and roared. In fury, he smashed his blade down toward the girl, but the human leapt between them, his armored arm catching the strike. The impact drove him to his knees. Metal screeched, sparks rained. The girl gasped, her song faltering. The human pushed back, rising again, voice like thunder. "Keep singing." The girl choked back her sobs and gave her voice again. The commander growled, striking harder, each blow a storm. The human staggered, but never fell, never let the blade pass him. Hunters clawed at his back. He spun and struck, his blade cutting arcs of fire. He moved like a storm in chains, always between her and death. His armor cracked. His breath grew heavy, but his eyes, though hidden, burned with something the aliens could not touch. Not rage, not fear, but resolve. A vow made long before he stepped into this prison. The console's circle closed to its last mark. The shard flared, light spilling through the cracks of the floor. The girl's body trembled, her voice a scream. Of song now, the mark on her neck glowed so bright it lit the room. The hunters faltered at the sound, their movements breaking, their claws slow. But the commander pressed harder, fury burning through him. He shoved the human back, blade crashing down. The human blocked, sparks blinding. The commander leaned close, his voice a growl. "You cannot win." The human pushed back with all, his strength, his voice steel. "I don't need to win, only to hold." The girl screamed her last note. The circle closed. The console flared white. The shard sank into the tower. The core erupted, light spilling out like a flood. The ground shook, walls cracked, the ceiling split. The prison roared as if it felt its own death. The commander staggered, his blade trembling. The hunters shrieked, their bodies twisting, breaking apart in the flood of light. The girl fell to her knees, her song spent, her chest heaving. The core blazed like a sun, unstoppable now. The human stood before it, his. Blade glowing in its fire, the commander roared and charged one last time. The clash shook the chamber, stone against steel, fire against resolve. The human struck, the commander struck, their blades sang like thunder. Then, with a final cry, the human drove his blade deep into the commander's chest. The giant roared, black blood spilling, and fell into the light. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of the core. The girl looked up, tears streaming down her face. The human stood, shoulders heavy, armor broken. The console flashed red symbols. "Now the seed is awake," the human said, "but the core is unstable. We have minutes, maybe less." The girl crawled toward him, clutching his arm. "We must leave," she cried, her voice breaking. He looked at her, silent for a moment, then shook his head slowly. "If I leave, the hunters above will follow. They will seal the sky. You will never escape." His voice was calm, but she felt the weight of finality in it. Her throat closed. Her heart screamed, "No, you cannot stay." But he only placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle, steady. "You gave the song, I will give thee." "Wall," the girl sobbed, shaking her head, "I will not leave you." He looked toward the collapsing tower, the light rising like fire through the cracks. "You must," he said, "because hope is not me, it is you." He turned, lifting his blade. Again, as the doors above split, more shadows pouring in. The last wave, the final storm, the girl's tears fell onto the console, onto the floor, onto her hands. But her body moved on its own. She grabbed the case, turned, and ran toward the exit tunnel behind the tower. Her legs shook, her chest ached, but she ran. Behind her, the chamber filled with the sound of battle once more. The human's blade sang. His roar answered the hunters. The light of the core rose, swallowing shadow, swallowing stone. The girl stumbled into the tunnel, the air hot, the ground breaking. She turned one last time, eyes blinded by tears. She saw him still standing, still fighting, still holding the line, and then the tunnel collapsed behind her, sealing him away. The tunnel shook as the girl ran. The ground cracked under her feet. Dust falling like rain from the ceiling. Heat rose behind her, the roar of the collapsing core chasing her like fire with wings. Her breath tore through her chest. Her legs burned, but she did not stop. Every step carried the weight of the humans. Words, you must live. You must carry hope. She stumbled, fell, scraped her hands on sharp stone, but pushed herself up again. The case was still clutched to her chest, though the shard inside was gone. Its power now burned in the heart of the core. She could hear it, even here, a song that was no longer only hers. It was the sound of freedom being born in fire. The tunnel twisted, turned, broke into pieces. Sometimes she had to crawl. Sometimes she had to leap. Flames licked through cracks in the walls. Smoke choked her throat. She coughed, tears blinding her, but she moved forward. Behind her, she imagined the humans still standing, still fighting. Every crash, every roar, every spark of battle became his heartbeat in her mind. At last the tunnel split open into a cavern. Above, jagged stone teeth stretched wide, and through them she saw stars, cold, endless, sharp, like eyes that had always been watching. She gasped, the first breath of open air cutting her lungs. For so long she had seen only walls, chains, and blood. Now the sky poured over her like an ocean. She staggered to her knees, tears streaming freely. She had escaped, but not free, not yet. The ground rumbled, a quake rolling through the cavern. She turned and saw the prison behind her. The mountain that hid it groaned like a dying beast. Light spilled from cracks, white fire cutting through the stone. The hum of the core rose into a scream. Then the world split open. The prison collapsed inward, swallowed by its own heart. A column of light burst into the sky, reaching past the stars. The girl shielded her eyes. Sobbing, the prison was gone, destroyed, but with it, so was he. Her knees gave out, her body curling forward. Her chest ached with grief. Her voice broke into the dark. Why? Why did you save me only to stay behind? Her words echoed back at her, small, broken. The night gave no answer, only silence and the whisper of wind. Then a shadow passed across the stars. She looked up, heart stopping. A small ship descended, battered, smoking. It was no alien vessel. Its shape was human, sharp, metallic, alive with scars. It landed with a groan on the cavern floor, its hatch hissing open. A figure stepped out, another human, armor marked with the same insignia as his. The soldier's voice cut across the cavern, steady and urgent. Come with me if you want to live. The girl staggered, her body weak, her voice shaking. You? You are one of him? The soldier nodded once, eyes hard but not unkind. We were sent together, but only he went inside. The girl's chest broke with fresh tears. He? He did not return. The soldier's gaze dropped for a moment, then rose again, steel in his voice. Then he finished his mission. She clutched the case tighter to her chest, shaking her head. He said I must live. But what is life without him? The soldier stepped closer, lowering his weapon. You are not only alive, you are proof, he said. Proof that they can be beaten. Proof that his sacrifice mattered. His words cut her heart. Sharp but true. Another quake rolled through the ground, dust falling from above. The soldier looked up at the collapsing cavern, then back at her. We cannot stay. The fire will spread. This whole mountain will burn. He reached out a hand, steady, waiting. For a moment she stared at it, torn between grief and survival. Then she placed her hand in his, her body trembling. He pulled her into the ship, the hatch closing behind them. The ship lifted, shaking as it rose through the broken stone. The girl pressed against the window, staring down at the ruins of the prison. The light still burned, but softer now, fading like the last breath of a giant. She whispered, "Goodbye." Her voice breaking, the soldier glanced at her, but said nothing. The silence between them was filled with respect, with grief, with something unspoken. The ship broke free of the mountain. The stars stretched out before them, endless and sharp. But they were not alone in the sky. As the ship turned, the girl gasped. Dozens of alien vessels moved in the dark, their shapes huge, their lights cold. They had not been destroyed with the prison. They had been waiting, watching. The soldier cursed under his breath, his hands flying across the controls. They know. The signal has spread, he said. The war has already begun. The girl's heart clenched, her grief mixing with dread. They will come for me again, she whispered. The soldier shook his head, his voice iron. No, this time we come for them. The ship's engines roared, carrying them into the black. The girl pressed the case to her chest. The shard inside was gone, but its fire lived on in the core's destruction, and in her. She closed her eyes, her mark still glowing faintly on her neck. She remembered his voice, steady, calm, unbroken. You gave the song, I will give the wall. Her tears fell quietly, but behind them a new fire rose. She would not let his sacrifice die in silence. She would carry it, earn with it, fight with it, for her people, for his people, for both worlds. The ship vanished into the stars, leaving the broken mountain below. But far across the galaxy, a new light stirred. Alien commanders gathered. Fleets awakened, and in the dark of space, a deeper shadow moved, something older, colder, and far more dangerous than the prison. The war was not ending. It was only beginning. The girl opened her eyes, her voice soft but strong. He saved me, she whispered. Now I will save others. The stars seemed to tremble as if listening. The fire of the core burned faintly in her mark, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the storm to come